The December USDA World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates report projects that the U.S. corn crop this year will reach 13.6 billion bushels, or 345.5 million metric tons. While this is not a record, it is still a large crop that farmers in the U.S. Corn Belt grew. In Texas, corn farmers experienced weather challenges early, as Chad Wetzel explains.
It's not been a typical year here. We faced unseasonably wet spring this year, and it first of all, it allowed us to not get our whole crop planted, and second of all, it did have some negative effects when the corn was young. We had lots of standing water in the fields, and it took a toll on the plant. But overall, yields did improve somewhat, and so we were a little bit below average, but not too bad.
In the northern U.S. Corn Belt, Minnesota corn farmer Gary Perath also said weather had a major impact on the final outcome of his corn crop.
The typical seems to become the average of the extremes. We had some good timely rains through the early growing season. After we were started very early in April, 24th or so, which is maybe a little earlier than normal. Then we had a stretch of very cool weather. The crop was off to a very slow start. And then we had a nice stretch of growing conditions as we got into June with timely rains. And then about the 24th of July, the rains kind of ended. And since the end of July now, we've only had just under 2 inches of rain on this crop now all through harvest. So we've really dried up from our early conditions.
Despite the limited rainfall, Gary's corn yields and quality remained high.
This year we're in that 155 to 185 bushel range on our yields. There have been some not very far south of here that have been over 200. Areas that haven't gotten so much rain are probably were hurt a little bit by the dry conditions, and conditions and yields may be more average. Grain quality is exceptional. One of the nice features that that's helping this year as far as grain quality, the less you have to handle it after you combine it, the better the quality is. We don't have a big drying expense this year. We'll have to dry less than half of our crop, which is it can be a significant cost as well as a decreasing quality.
In Texas, Chad also said his crop's quality was good and attributed this outcome to seed genetics.
The quality was good. The test weights on the grain were pretty exceptional this year, and I attribute a lot of that to the genetics in the seed. Our genetics are getting better every year, and those seem to help our quality.
Now that the crop is harvested, U.S. farmers will continue to monitor the quality closely, as many U.S. farmers have bins that allow them to store their crop until they are ready to sell.
We monitor the corn in the bins throughout the fall and throughout the winter. We usually put our corn in our bins after harvest and sell it over the winter and the following spring. So we will take samples out occasionally throughout the year to make sure there are no pests in the corn and to make sure it's at the proper temperature. And if not, we will take the steps we need to fix any issues.
U.S. corn farmers understand that maintaining the quality of their grain is important, not only for themselves but for end users, including export markets that are vital to U.S. corn farmers' bottom lines.
Well, exports have always been a main market for corn farmers. Even before ethanol started, exports was the only other, besides livestock and other industrial uses, was the only other market we had, and we need every market we can get. We have to work those markets all the time to make sure that they're available and try to expand them, because we're sitting on a pile of corn from last year, and as you can see, we look like we've got a pretty good crop coming again, so we need to make sure we have all the markets, and exports is a very vital part of that.